I'm white. I know. Congrats, Lacey, you've figured out your race. But this is actually pretty significant. For most of my life, I was blissfully unaware of the fact that I'm white. My race never affected me, a huge benefit I didn't even know that I had. Growing up, I knew racism is bad, but I didn't really understand what racism is. I thought racism was slurs, discrimination, hating someone based on their skin color. About 50 years ago, direct, in-your-face, this overt racism became illegal and less socially acceptable, which had two side effects on white America. First, it allowed us to believe that racism is over. Yeah, I'm okay, I love that guy. Secondly, it enabled white folks to frame the ongoing struggles of the black community as a character flaw. So after Ferguson, a family member said to me, "Look, Lacey, black people have a lot of problems because they have a bad culture, bad values. They're violent, they're lazy, broken families. Look at them out there riding like animals. That's not racism, that's just the facts." Whoa there, tell me how you really feel. Now, people usually aren't so blunt about it, but if you look closely, you're gonna see these sentiments about black America echoed everywhere.
So I taught school for 20 years. A lot of people of color who didn't want to work as hard, they wanted it given to them.
They don't make a living for themselves. They just drop out of high school. I'm gonna have kids. I'm gonna get a welfare check.
I'm gonna get my GED.
I'll get my GED. I'm gonna go work at McDonald's.
Young black men often reject education and gravitate towards the street culture, drugs, hustling, gangs. Nobody forces them to do that. Again, it is a personal decision.
The message, to be black, is to be inferior. But that's not the facts, that's just racism. Racism isn't just burning crosses and white hoods. Racism is a seeping system of forces that effectively keep people of color in a permanent second-class status. It's the foundational fabric of our society, woven with values and attitudes, stereotypes, policies, economics, laws. Jim Crow was replaced with a host of shiny new laws that were just as racist, but looked better on the surface. This has made it harder than ever for white America to see the truth. The odds are ever in our favor, and they always have been. Let's take a stroll down memory lane. Stop 1. Wealth. Between 1934 and 1962, the government backed $120 billion of home loans. But they refused to give out home loans to black folks, or even if black folks lived nearby. This went on for decades. This practice, called redlining, essentially 1. Forced black Americans into poor urban centers, the beginnings of the ghetto. 2. Segregated America to this day. 3. Made it impossible to invest in the future of black neighborhoods. And 4. Made it impossible for black Americans to start inheriting property and wealth the same way that white Americans were. Stop 2. Education. Property taxes fund schools, which means that families that live in nice houses, maybe ones they got with the help of the government, get a better education. Better education means more opportunities, more resources, more connections, more jobs, more money, money, money. Stop 3. Jobs. The lack of educational opportunities meant that many black folks were relegated to low-wage manual labor. Today, when looking at the same exact resume, employers are 50% more likely to call back a resume labeled with a white-sounding name. Stop 4. Mass incarceration. Shortly after the civil rights movement, prisons became privatized for-profit businesses. Fill those cells, make those dollars, and they did. The prison population shot up from 200,000 to 2.4 million. More than any country in the world. And who filled those cells? People of color.
More African American adults are under correctional control today than were enslaved in 1850, a decade before the Civil War began.
Black men are now imprisoned at 6 times the rate of white men. So did black men just become 6 times more dangerous? Or of course not. What changed was the laws and sentencing. Sweeping laws were written that specifically targeted black communities. For instance, the sentence for possession of crack was 100 times harsher than the sentence for cocaine. Stop 5. Racial profiling. It wasn't just harsher sentencing. Communities of color are also policed more harshly.
One of the few memories I have of my dad as a kid is seeing him yelled at and questioned by police on the street. And when they didn't like the answers he was giving them to their questions, they proceeded to aggressively question me. And I was just 8 years old.
Policies like Show Me Your Papers and Stop and Frisk target people of color under the law. Totally legal. So shocker, they're much more likely to get arrested for doing the same things that white people do, but twice as likely to get pulled over. Take the late Walter Scott, who was pulled over for having a broken taillight, only to be shot 5 times in the back by a cop. Stop 6. Police brutality. Police brutality is front and center of the race conversation right now. Twice a week in the US, white officers kill black suspects, most of whom are unarmed. And the consequences are minimal, if any. Might even get paid a bunch of money for it. The police themselves admit to widespread usage of excessive force and racial bias. So what does America do? Oh, just give them military supplies, of course. Tanks, protective gear, firepower used in war, all the while wagging a finger at protesters that dare to be outraged by it. Sadly, this is all just the tip of the racism iceberg. We really need to ask ourselves, what's really causing the problems that we're observing in America? What advantages has white America been given, often without even realizing it? The first step in combating racism, and often the hardest step, is acknowledging it. Acknowledging that the system is unfair. Racism is a powerful institution built by 400 years of slavery, 100 years of outright discrimination, 50 plus more years of covert discrimination. A legacy that long in the making doesn't just disappear overnight. America got a lot of work to do. Links down below to some voices that you should definitely be following, as well as sources and lots more information for your thirsty brains. Lots of love, y'all. I'll see you next time. Mwah!
Except your mom. Oh.
What?